All right.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. This is our 20th webinar, and we decided we wanted to do something just based on really a lot of calls and things like that that we've had over the past few weeks with everybody breaking out back into live events, hybrid events. And so what we want to do is just kind of get back to basics, just really talk about live auction flow, live event flow, what that's going to be. We've got some great resources. I'm not going to go through all the resources today, but we will put those in an email. And those of you that joined us last week, I always get that, recording out usually that day or the next day. We had some time because we were getting some resources together. Hey, Fred, and we're going to get that out. I will be sending that out as well. So if you were on last week, we'll get that out as well. So it was a really interesting deal of crypto. And another thing I want to do is we're going to send out a link as a resource to you guys too, is just to all of the webinars that we've done, all 20 of them. That it'll be on YouTube. And so that way, if there's something that you see we're going to talk about today, maybe there's something we've gone into more in depth about with events coming up. And so that way you've got that information. So my partner, Trevor Nelson's here. He's going to be talking about sharing some stuff. And please, questions. This is the time for to answer those questions. I mean, heck, if it's the right deal, we may just have you come on and join us online and talk about it, because I think there's a lot of stuff that we can all learn. And so we're really excited that you're here today. So Trevor, we've been coming through 2020. We've talked about it. Well, 2021's here. Pretty much everybody we're talking to now is doing a live event, and everybody has been, and they've been doing really well. So,
or some kind of version thereof, right? Seems like some kind of version thereof as well. Yeah, I mean, and we're seeing a lot of hybrid events still where there's an auction open for maybe 5 days to a week before the live event takes place. And we've these different topics that we're going to discuss today, back to basics with timeline and how many items you should have in the online or silent auction, how many items you should have in the live auction, things like that. These are things that we've kind of covered in every single webinar at some point or another. They always get brought up, maybe with the exception of the cryptocurrency webinar we did last week. So these are hot topics, but they're basic topics. These are things that need to be uncovered and discussed and strategized properly before hosting your event. So of course, I'll be monitoring Q&A and the chat function. Pepper us with as many questions as you possibly can. We'd like this episode to be as interactive as possible. And like Jason said, we have the option to bring you on and ask questions live and all that good stuff. And hang in there till the very end, because we're going to announce a winner for a travel item, an auction item that you can use at your next event, whether it's live or hybrid or what have you. And stay till the very end. So we're happy to have everyone. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and if you're new and you haven't been to one of our webinars, thank you so much for sharing your time, your valuable time with us. And we really want to give you some value that you can take home and use today. And we do record these so that way we can send these out to you. And all the resources we talk about that I'm going to talk about today, we're going to share those with you. So we'll send all this out as well. Well, let's just get right to it. I'm just going to pop right on here, and we'll get to rock and make sure that you can see the screen. And so getting back to basics. I mean, it's here, live events, or we're rocking it. It's so exciting. And so the first thing I want to talk about is live events and hybrid. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. Live events, kind of bounce back and forth, but we've seen, going from virtual. I realize there may be some people still having virtual events that have planned them, but live events is where it's at. The live events that we've been able to participate in, had a part of, have been doing fantastic. People are ready to get out. They're ready to mingle and be around each other. And so it's been really good. One of the things that I'm just going to hit some quick pieces on this, and then we'll kind of dive into each one of them. So live events and hybrid. Live event takes precedence. What I mean by that is, if you're doing a live event with a hybrid and streaming it, focus on the live event. Keep your focus and your program on the people in the room. Your streaming, let that be secondary. Keep to your established timeline. We're going to talk about that, and raise money first. I can't tell you how much important those things are to keep that in. And again, if you guys have questions, please hit us with them. We want to answer and make sure that you get get to what you're doing. So staying focused in the room. I'm kind of talking about if you're doing a streaming piece, like you've got your regular live event, but you said, you know what, we've had some people, we want to go ahead and do a hybrid, which I really think they're great. We see a lot of success with that, where you can reach out to a lot broader base of people who will tune in. You know, they may live in another state. Maybe if you've got a school or your organization, you've got a larger reach than just people right there inside your community that can come to your event. So it really gives you a great way to do that. People watching remotely will enjoy watching what happens in the room. This is like the only real reality TV that's left. Everything else is so scripted and staged, it's not real. But this is real. And, you know, have camera shots of what's going on in the room, and have your speakers address the room and not the camera. This is one thing that I've seen that people have, make sure I'm not there. Sorry about that. This is one thing where I see some folks that have really gotten confused by. You know, they spend all this money with all this AV and all the production stuff, and it becomes a staged project, and they kind of forget everybody in the room. You can have a camera, but you know, if I'm doing a virtual event, I really need to focus on that camera. But if I'm doing a live event, I need to be focused on the people in the room, talking to them just like you would without the camera. So really make sure that that's secondary. Keep your timeline. I'm not going to talk about it here specifically, but I'm going to send a sample timeline that Amy Myers from MDA shared with us. I'll share that with you guys when we email this out. But keep to your timeline. You know, start each portion of your event on time. Finish your fundraising no later than 9 p.m. I'll talk about that more. And then keeping 1 hour of fundraising. Keep into your timeline. I've been doing this for a long time, done a lot of events, and it's really easy to get caught in the trap of, oh, give us 5 more minutes. Oh, we need to delay 10 minutes. We need to wait 5 minutes. Anybody else, show of hands? Anybody else been to an event or had your event where that happens? Yeah, it's a really dangerous place to go in. Thank you for telling us that. It's a really dangerous place to get to. I recommend just stick to it. If your event's supposed to start at 6:30 and you've asked, you know, everybody to sit down 3 times, start your event. They will move and get to their table. You can't control people. You can't push them around and just wait. And if you delay, they'll delay too. They'll think, oh, well, they won't start yet. And then you start your program, they'll get on over to their seat, sit down. So really keep to the timeline. And that follows into, you know, the whole thing about having your fundraising done by 9 o'clock. You know, finishing 9 o'clock, it is really critical, especially after we've done all the virtual, all the stuff, that you get that done. The reason I say 9 p.m., and I'm talking about 9 p.m. wherever your time, if you're on Pacific, it's Pacific time, Central, all that. The reason I say that is over the years, one of the things I've observed, yeah, you can get away with 9:05 or maybe 9:10, but it gets much after that. All of a sudden, people start disappearing. Why do they do that? Well, maybe they've got kids. They've got something else they've got to do. They've got to get up early the next day. You know, it's just a really good time. People that want to stay and party are going to stay and party regardless of what time it is. But people that a lot of people with money are going to leave the room and they're going to disappear. So let's not drag that out, and make sure that you're done and within your timeline that you set that up. 1 hour of fundraising. I cannot stress this more. And what I mean by that, 1 hour of fundraising. So how many of us have been here? I'll ask this question again. Have you had where all your, where you were at that event that the auction never ended? Instead of it was a gala, it was something fun. It was like the auction went on and on and on and on. There's an event I did. They had, and this was a long time ago when I did this, they had 60 items in the live auction. 60. I don't care who you are. That's a lot of stuff. And so that's really what it was. It was this live event, and it just kept going on. So again, After about an hour, you're going to start losing people's attention. They're going to want to get up. They've got to go to the bathroom. They want to go get a cocktail. They're ready to go, smoke a cigarette, do whatever, but they're ready to get up and move. And so really all your timing, you want to keep that to a deal. And I'm talking about the live auction, your golden ticket, finishing that up, live auction, and the fund to need. Those are the pieces when I say keep it an hour. And here's really the simple deal. It's 3 minutes per auction item. So if you've got 10 items, that's going to take 30 minutes, give or take a few days, so there's 30 minutes. If you do a fund to need mission drive, let's say that's another 5 to 10. So now we're at 40 minutes. That's plenty. So well under an hour. I call it the golden hour of fundraising. I like it to be even less than that. 45 minutes is really, because you're going to start losing people. They're going to get bored, ready to do something else. And everybody's got, the goldfish complex or concept where, everybody's got an attention span of a goldfish, which is about 9 seconds. Any questions? Any questions so far? All right. Raise money first. Yeah. Do what, bro?
I said I'll monitor the Q&A in the chat.
Yeah. So raise money first. Don't let your program get in the way of raising money. And this kind of goes back to, really it just gets back to, you get up there, you've got a program, you've got some people you want to honor, you've got some people who are going to speak, you've got some things going on. Let's get to a taste of that, just a small portion, and let's get into fundraising, and then we can do all the honorees. That goes back into the whole thing about getting your fundraising finished by 9 o'clock at the latest. So, if you've got a 7 o'clock start time, like say it's 6:30, it's cocktails, dinner's at 7, and you're going to start the program at 7:15. Let's get that going, because that way you can get the program over. If your program's going to run longer and you've got some more people to speak, or maybe you've got a guest keynote speaker, really think about having that speaker do it after the fundraising rather than before. I'm going to give you a great example. There was an event in the city. It was event, and they had this astronaut that was going to come and speak. Awesome deal. You got this guy. But they also had the director of NASA come. Well, he's a politician. And anytime you give a politician the microphone, they don't want to give it up very easily. So they had this room. They had 400 people in the room. 400. The astronaut speaks. The politician speaks. They spent 2 hours on the microphone. And when the live auction portion started, there were about 75 people left. So, you did all that work, you busted your tail, you've done all this work. Most of you are doing it shorthanded. You've got all these people in here. Let's give them an opportunity to help our organization and really get to it. Okay. So don't, and I don't want to say don't do anything. I mean, everybody's got your own program, and I don't mean to, tell you to change everything, but just keep those things in mind when you're running your program. And then live auction ask games again should be all, completed no later than 9 o'clock. Rules of fundraising kind of could be Jason's rules, but it's whatever. This is just some recommendations that I like to live by. I had somebody, this is kind of a funny story. I had somebody call last week before the holiday weekend, and she called and said, "Hey, Jason, hey, I've got a question about when we should end the silent auction." And I said, "Okay, well, tell me about your event and tell me about stuff." And so we start talking, and then she starts asking me some other questions, and we wind up going through the whole layout and the whole timeline, which is kind of what made me think about doing this. And what the funny part is she thought that I was her auctioneer. And finally I said, "Hey, do you mind if I just ask you, where's the event at?" And she said, "Well, it's at the country club." "What city is the country club in?" She told me, "Well, it was in Michigan." And I said, "Oh, I don't think I'm your auctioneer." So it was so funny because the auctioneer that she had was Jason L, and I'm Jason L, obviously. And so it was just kind of a funny thing. And but all those questions were coming up because, it's been a year and a half since they'd done a live auction. So that's why they wanted to come up. No more than 5 revenue generators. Now, when I say that, this is a guide, not the gospel, but let me give you an example real quick. When I say revenue generators, ways that we're going to ask people for money. About 3 years ago, I was asked to go help at an event down in Texas and went down there, walked through the front door. And by the time I got to the check-in line and to the bar area, which I wasn't drinking anything because I was working, but when I got to that area, I had been asked for money like 7 or 8 times. You know, would you like to buy a ticket for this? Would you like to enter this? Would you like to do this? I mean, it was just, I got hit, bam, 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 bam. Well, I found out they had 17 times they were asking people for money in all these different functions and different things. So the next year we went and did it. They asked me to come back and help them again. And I said, well, I'll do that. But I said, let's cut these down. They went from 17 to 7. And they went from $75,000 raised to $200,000 raised. So you can raise a whole lot more money just because you're trying to do games and having fun. So if there's a game that everybody likes, like, there was a client I worked with and they really loved the wine pool. I said, well, do it. I said, you're not going to make as much money doing it this way, but if everybody loves to do it and it's exciting and you got plenty of donors that like to donate wine, and it's just kind of a thing, then do it. So don't let that stop you. But the main thing is silent auction, golden ticket raffle, wine pool, live auction, live ask. There's 5. Those are 5 generators. You may have something different. Maybe you've got a silent auction. You don't have a wine pool, but maybe it's a last man standing game that you're going to do. And we've got a whole recording on all the games and different generators that you can do besides live auction, silent auction. And then live ask is the mission drive. So a lot of people call it mission drive. Some people call it live ask. I want to make sure that you keep that in there. And this is in no particular order. You got to do what your event is. And then, for a live auction, I like 7 to 10 items in the live auction with a max of 12. Some people think 15 is enough. Some, I personally did an auction, like I told you, that had 60 items. That's been a long time ago. And then finish fundraising by 9 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, I'd like to see all of the silent auctions closed. Hopefully you've already got that done. The raffle tickets pulled, the wine pools are done. Everything is done. So that way you can focus on the party. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, we've got some things I'm going to send out. I didn't want to just go through the whole thing because it's going to be that, but I really wanted to open up some questions and answers and see if you guys have something, throw anything at us. I mean, Trevor and I are, we'd love to, be here to talk about that. I'm going to bring him back and
and we have some recent experience with every single one of these topics, as a matter of fact, good, bad, and indifferent. So feel free to ask away. Once again, pretty common. We get a question just about every week about how many items should be in the silent auction, how many should be in the live. All these basic tenets that Jason just laid out and Amy helped us with are things that everyone has to address. So if everyone's got this squared away, then so be it. But if there's any question about any facet about this, just let us know, please.
Yeah, and you can do Q&A or just ask it right there in the chat's just fine. We're open to that.
You brought up something interesting, Jason, with regard to the 12 max live auction items. We're not seeing that. That's maximum, of course, and I get it.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing a lot of events where there's 12 live auction items. Is anyone else seeing any trends like that or patterns?
Is anybody planning on having more than 12 items or in your event?
Oh, good question.
Robert is okay.
Great question, Kathy.
Okay, Jackie says, I'm new to my position. How do I get the committee away from saying this is how we've always done it? I want to wrap up the silent auction sooner than 10 p.m. Okay, that's a really interesting question.
Great question.
So one of the things here's a great opportunity to change stuff. 2020. That's a great way to change things, to use that as an excuse to say, hey, we've got to do something different. This is our first one back. We've been doing this the last few years. How do we get into a new routine? And that's a way that you can do is just say, hey, look, we know that this is the first time everybody's back. They may be antsy to get out of there. They may want to get away from the crowded room. They may want to stay. But one thing we do know is everybody wants to party, okay, whenever they do get together. So what I like to say is 9 o'clock, we shut everything down. With electronics, Kathy, I don't know, or Jackie, I'm sorry, I don't know. Are you using electronic bidding? Can you answer that for me? Just in the chat would be great. Yeah, okay, you're doing electronic bidding. So here's a great way to do it. We've seen, and we're seeing this a lot with clients who are doing stuff, with electronic bidding. They're opening up the silent auction, 4, 5, 6, 7 days prior to the event. So if you're opening up 7 days prior to the event, everybody's had a chance to look at it. There's nobody going to get drunk and stupid. I mean, there might be, but that's usually not it's not a good turnout usually, or a good ending whenever somebody does that, where, somebody gets lit up and they're going to go bid on something at 9:55 at night versus getting it over with. The other thing that I like to do about silent auctions, and this is a great just follow on to that, the reason that I like to have the silent auction closed prior to the live auction and the mission drive is if somebody thinks that they've spent $500, $600, $700 and they've got committed to the silent auction, and we're up for the mission drive and we're saying, hey, we're at $500 level. Well, they might have given $500 at the $500 giving level, but they're not sure because they think that they're committed on the hook for something. So if we shut the silent auction down first, they know what they won. They know how much they've spent. And then we can have the live auction keep on going.
Yep. I think that's really smart.
Have that mission drive. So, you got to help people help themselves. They're going to want to give you, I literally have had people say, golly, I would have bid on that, but I just wasn't sure. They had that silent auction. I didn't know if I'd won or not. And they weren't using electronic bidding. So with electronic bidding, bidding software, you're going to know really quick what your exposure is, if you would, what you have spent. And that way it can go on. So those are the two things that I would suggest. One is, hey, this is a brand new year, a new way of thinking stuff. We've got a chance to change some stuff. Let's go with some practices we've seen that we know we have other people have said and have experience share that have worked really well. So, opening the bidding up, earlier, letting them preview and see it. And don't be concerned if people aren't bidding the first 2 or 3, 4 days. Most people watch it, look at it, but they don't really start bidding until it gets close to the end anyway.
It's time. Yeah.
It's just
at least it's also a great tool to preview the items, right? I mean, that's really
that's really what it's for. And if they want to, they can put a bid in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and get the ball rolling. Jackie, another thing, at the risk of sounding overly cliche, change always does lead to growth. I mean, that's one great explanation that you can provide your committee and what have you if you're trying to get a few things done. We've certainly noticed that as a company working with our clients, and that was out of necessity, right? We had to change, but we've certainly grown in what we're able to provide and the expertise and the experience and whatnot. So I always rely on that, not because it's just talk, but because it's true. So that's my 2 cents on that. Jason, Fred had a point about he generally has more than 10 items for his live auction, but he says, I think that those are because the items are not high dollar items. Now, would you suggest, not necessarily putting in high dollar items in the live auction, but would you suggest kind of dispersing some of those items in the silent auction, adding in something new that's kind of having an idea?
Yeah. One thing you got to decide is how much money do you want to make?
Good. Remember the math. Yep.
Remember the math. If you need to raise $20,000 in your live auction and you've got 10 items that are worth $500,
we're not going to do it.
You're not going to get there. Yep. Or you've got 35 items or something like that. So think about this, pooling and compressing stuff together. Just because you put things and sell them together doesn't mean that the person who donated is going to be offended. I mean, you just put that in there. Let's say it was power tools. And you had this deal and you had a toolbox and you had these set of power tools and you had an air compressor. Put it all together and say, hey, we're going to put, it's a, rebottle kit. whatever you want to call it, and put all that stuff together. It's still going to go the same amount. It's going to bring more money typically than trying to piecemeal it out. And that's just an example. But let's say that, we talk about this with a lot with like smaller stuff putting together in baskets, for silent auctions, for live auctions. I've seen live auctions where they put, a bunch of stuff that there were 35 different pieces in,
gift cards,
put it all together.
Yeah.
And, sorry about that. I had a little glitch, I think.
Yeah, but like putting gift cards together all together, for instance.
Yeah.
And, feed yourself for X amount of days or what have you. We've seen different creative ways to go about that.
So sure. I like to take, how much money do we need to raise? How much money do we need to raise? What's our target goal? And then build it backwards and then go, okay, we have this much stuff donated. Now what do we do? Okay, we need a couple of more items. Who's in our, what's the most money that we can pull out of what's the most expensive thing we've ever sold? Well, the most expensive thing we ever sold was $5,000. Okay, that's probably where my limit is. I don't want to go and try to go get something that's going to cost 20 grand because I'm not going to have anybody, I don't think, because I need to have multiple people who can afford to, to play in that arena. And then I go, what do people want? Now, we obviously sell consignment and we offer that. And the reason is because people love to travel. They like to go and do stuff, but that's where I pick up my phone. Most powerful fundraising tool you have is right here. And I start going through the list and going, okay, who's got a place to lake that would give us a weekend that we could sell for a couple of $1,000? Maybe they've got a sailboat and we could do a dinner cruise. Oh yeah. You know what? I forgot Trevor is a partner. He's partners in a restaurant. And, we're going to do this really cool dinner with a wine tasting. You can go find this stuff. I've got a client right here in Oklahoma City. They were looking for something, they needed a little something extra. And I just happened to be at dinner. And I asked the guy at the restaurant, I said, hey, would you want to do a wine pairing for 8 people for this organization? He goes, yeah, of course. I'd love to.
Awesome.
Now, that doesn't always happen, but I mean, it was an opportunity to do it. He saw it as something to do for the community. They've been back open and cranking them for a while. So it's not like they're still shut down when we were in COVID. And so he's doing stuff. So that's a great way for, just keep those things in mind. More is not necessarily more.
That's a great point. Karen Smith had another question. If we close a silent auction, mobile bidding, electronic bidding before the live auction starts, should we have all the items there for the winners to take home? Speak to that. Sometimes that's not always realistic with regard to the items. However, thanks, Karen.
You don't have to make delivery on something and have it there. If you've got a good representation where they can really see it and visualize it and a good description, that's all you need to do. Give them a certificate. Give them a piece of paper or something, that way they can feel good about it. And they've got something they can take home, put it in a nice envelope and say, here's what it is. There was a group just recently. Now it was virtual, but what they did is they had a lot of silent auction items and they had accumulated them and they just went and took them and delivered them to everybody. And that was just kind of a cool thing that they did. And they did delivery. And so, so I guess my answer to that is you don't need to have them there. People are okay if it's going to be something that's going to be delivered. Just put that in the information. They're cool with it because especially right now, sometimes it's hard to get it picked up.
Yeah, that's trustworthy enough for sure. We find it's funny because that's really our reality, actually, when it comes to folks buying items at an event, whether it's a silent auction, live auction, online, or somewhere therein. That's our reality, right? So as far as the world that we're in, delivery is different. It's usually electronic.
One of the things that we offer that actually does really well is the wine. We sell wine it's directly imported from Italy.
Yeah.
We don't have it. I'm not going to store it. Trevor's not going to store it. We don't even have a place to store it. And then obviously sending it there beforehand, people don't really care. We just have seen that over the years, it's not like where it used to be where I've got to get my stuff. That just winds up creating a whole lot of problems. You can, shipping's cheap or not relative. People are used to doing that. So I just think there's a lot of ways around it.
But as well, it's very important to make sure expectations are set right away as far as what you should expect, how fast those items will be delivered. I think most folks, do a great job of that. Obviously, sometimes there's some stones left unturned, and we don't ever want that to be unsettling for the donors, right? So just making sure that they understand that, hey, this is when things will be delivered by, so on and so forth. I think it's really smart to make sure you set clear expectations for the donors when it comes to delivery. Some of the items are going to be tangible items that they're going to be able to take home with them. Some of them are completely electronic or intangible, and so be it, right? So they just need to understand that, I think, and they should know that when they're bidding.
I think Mark had a deal. Mark West had an event because he talked to me about it. They were selling. It was an installation of an air conditioner. It was a heat and air unit, a whole deal with installation. Well, nobody's going to take that home with them. So having, unless the donor just wants to bring it there and have it sitting there and we can see it, nobody cares.
Right.
I love videos. I like videos for live auctions. You can make a really short, back in the day, we always had the book. Okay. That was everything. We had to have a book. Well, then we went to an overhead, and now we've got video. You can get a video produced so quickly and so easy. It can be really simple as, we've got some that we have with our items, but you can do it for anything and just come up there and have a little video that says, oh yeah, you're going to stay cool this year, with a brand new installed such and such, HVAC 4-ton unit for a house of this size and blah, 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 it's set, expert delivery, blah, all these things, and have a little video on it and done. And it can be anything. You can make a lot, to get people's attention. And that way they know what you're selling. Because again, people have been closeted up, separated out for so long. Whenever they get to these events, what we're seeing, they love. It's like, oh my gosh, I forgot how much I miss people. They're talking, they're in the middle of it. So you get their attention, they can see what you're selling, and then get right back to it. So I think that's a great way to do it.
Catherine had a really cool experience share with partner with a local delivery service, and they delivered all their items and received sponsorship benefits. I thought that's
a great idea.
That's very inventive.
Fantastic.
That's really, really cool. I love that. Anything new like that is awesome. If anyone else ever or had any experience with doing something creative like that, and I think that's just a very common theme with every single week that we're on here. We hear really, really, really creative ideas as to how to get these items to people, how to procure these items, different things, and to make and different sponsorship opportunities. There's all sorts of really creative stuff, and these are all things that these are not huge hurdles to jump over with regard to your committee or whatever your organization or directors or what have you. These are all really, really cool creative ideas that work, right? So I think that's awesome. A local delivery service, that's fantastic.
That brings this thought to me while you're trying to think about how to go get more items donated. Take a second and think about around your community, who is doing really well this last year. One of the things that we've seen is there are some obviously restaurants took it hard. A lot of businesses got shut down. It was devastating to a lot of industry. But there's a lot of industry that did really, really well. I've got some friends around, I know everybody else probably does too, made more money in 2020 than they ever made before. And it was just a weird marriage of things like the delivery, a delivery service. They probably did really well last year. So, they're going to be more in tune to make that donation, to make that ask, because they were, benefited throughout the pandemic. And so now you've got somebody else who I'm trying to say this in the right way. They benefited, they want to give. And this is a great opportunity for you to reach out to them. So kind of take a step back and maybe call up the local Chamber of Commerce and say, who's been crushing it? There you go. Construction's been really, really good. We know that. The home services, all those. So those are some great ways that you can reach out and just some more ideas to do that. And like you said, they receive sponsorship benefits, and we got our stuff delivered.
That was really cool. Yeah. I love that. That's what it takes. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions or ideas or thoughts that you'd like to share with us? And we'll be drawing a winner for an item for your next event as well. And we'll also, of course, be sending out the slides that Jason had that Amy worked on with us as well. And we can't wait to have Amy back as soon as possible. She's wrapping up some pretty major events right now. And we're not lost without her, but we definitely need her. So we're looking forward to it. If there's anything else, let us know. And Jason, if you have a winner, let me know as well, or let everyone know. Pardon me.
I'll let you announce it.
Oh, it's Steve. All right. So the winner of the item for his next event will be Steve. Steve, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it. And I know it'll go to good use. So we'll definitely be in touch. I'll reach out to you today myself, Steve. So thanks so much. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Any last
questions about run of show or anything like that? Like I said, I'm going to send a couple things that we got, just a template for a timeline. Oh, and this is one thing I want to say. If you're not putting out an entire run of show, start doing it. Mm-hmm. Usually that's, companies that do put events on, event companies, they'll always do a run of show. And maybe you're not hiring an event company this year, but do it. Type it out. You'll see the example I'm going to send you. Put everything on it and give it to all the people that need to know. So that way they just keep everything in mind of what's going on. It really, really helps and lets everybody understand what's happening. So, hey, we told you we'd get you here under an hour, and obviously we're here. So if there's not any more questions, we're going to sign off. So I just want to give one more shot. Any questions that anybody's got, and then we're going to get on out of here.
Thanks everyone so much. Enjoy your afternoon, and please tell a friend and tell a colleague and tell them to tell a colleague and a friend to join us next Thursday for episode 21. And we'll get all the registration info out to you as soon as possible. And we appreciate everyone joining once again. Thanks so much. And thanks so much.
We really appreciate you guys.
All right.
If we can help you in any way, let us know.
All right. Talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, Trevor.
Bye now.